to take your time, because if you break one of those taps in the block,
yeah.
pardon my language.
Yeah.
You gotta be very careful. Gentle. You have to have a very, very good Allen. And if you strip that and it's not down far enough, again, you're screwed.
Mm-hmm. So many ways to get screwed building an engine. What's up, Lite Brite Nation?
Hey, what's going on, Lite Brite Nation?
Hey, Lite Brite, how you doing?
So we are back at CBM Motorsports.
Finally.
Because the clock is ticking, guys. It's January. King of the Hammers is coming up quick.
Like 2.5 weeks away.
And the Ultra 4 car is still apart. Specifically,
and so is our engine.
The engine. But we're finally at a point where we can put everything back together. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to have James here go through the entire process. He did a fan-freaking-tastic job last time helping to explain everything that we needed to do.
And we did find some damage, and yeah, we found
a few more things.
Yeah.
So we're going to let him kind of show all that to us.
All right, first and foremost, before we start putting this all back together, we'll show you all the new parts, is the Squirters.
The Squirters, everyone's favorite.
Everybody's favorite, the Squirters. So if you can see here what he's doing, what are you tapping?
So first what we do is we take this jig here and we set it up. Right there we'll take the drill bit, very, very long drill bit. It goes through this hole here. And I don't have it tightened down so I won't put it all the way through, but it goes through the hole there. Very, very precision fit, and it drills that hole through the main.
So he's drilling and tapping the main journals or whatever?
Yeah, the main journal of the block. You have two taps you have to use. You have to use one that goes in and kind of opens this up a little bit just so you could get the actual squirter in there.
For everyone who is wondering what a squirter looks like, ta-da!
It's a very, very small hole on that side. That's where it actually mists the bottom of the piston.
Right, and once we get done showing you here, we'll flip it over and we'll show you all of them. But you can see there's one on each side.
This procedure, you have to take your time, because if you break one of those taps in the block,
yeah.
Pardon my language.
Yeah.
So you can't just use like an impact?
No, because they're brass. So even with this, you gotta be very careful.
Gentle.
You have to have a very, very good Allen. And if you strip that and it's not down far enough, again, you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So many ways to get screwed building an engine.
You gotta be careful not to go too far.
Don't go too deep.
Yeah, I'll show you guys on the other side.
All right, so now you can see the Squirters. You see
Oh, there you go. Yep.
You see them there? So that's gonna coat the bottom of the piston.
Yep.
Which, check these babies out.
Speaking of.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh,
Look at that. They're not gonna leave you this shiny for long, but.
they look good right now.
Yep. All right, so we talked about the Squirters. You guys saw that. Let's go over to the heads real quick, because unfortunately we weren't able to use the heads that were originally on the engine because we found an issue.
Yeah, so the exhaust, obviously, they were fine. They would have been okay. But the intakes, when we pulled them out, if you look very closely, right there, you can see a crack.
Can you get it? There it is.
There you go. You can see it right
That crack
there.
right
You can see it pretty decent. Which, I mean, I know for anyone who's not familiar with an engine, that might not seem like much, but that is detrimental.
Yeah, what that does is when that's cracked there, you don't have that crush on the guide.
So those brass valve guides in here are actually a press fit. And so what would happen is that would go in there, that wouldn't be a press fit anymore, and then you could actually, the springs and everything will just take the valve guide and start.
Yeah,
so.
either hold the valve open or...
But good news is here's the new head, a newer updated head. So this one's from 7+ years ago. It worked fine, but they have found out some things while you guys have been into Ultra 4 racing and stuff now building engines, is that you can see right here the water jacket. So these are water jackets where the coolant runs through around the valves to cool everything off. And if you look on ours, they're a lot bigger. And sometimes you think, well, obviously bigger, better, it flows more. But the problem is that this flows so quickly, it doesn't actually pull enough heat out by slowing it down, by having it smaller. Right. It slows the circulation down, which allows it to draw more heat away from the cylinder head and from those valves.
The coolant will help pull the heat out from around the valve, and that's why it's restricted here. and these are just a lot bigger. Normally, cars will have a thermostat in them.
We don't run thermostats in race
Most
cars.
race cars don't run a thermostat, so you got to find a way to restrict it. Either you could do a freeze plug in the water pump, which you have to do, or you could do a combination of a few different things. We found that this does work the best.
Just so you guys know, so in a lot of these race car applications, there's no thermostat, so that pump is just I mean, it is just pushing through. So a thermostat not only regulates the temperature to a certain degree, but it also slows down the coolant flow through the system.
Over years, they have found ways to improve their head. So although it sucks that we now have to buy a new set of heads,
You know,
improvements.
So, unfortunately, it's a little bit more money, but we're getting new and better product.
Racing's never cheap.
No, it's not. We're figuring that out real quick.
Okay, so what's the next step as far as the engine goes?
I'm going to go get the block cleaned. I'm going to take it out there to Timbo, have them completely clean the block out, all the oil galleys, everything, make sure we don't have any little chips from doing the drilling and tapping in there. Meantime, I'm going to measure up the crank, make sure we got the correct tolerances in the crank, and hang the pistons and rods. And once I get the block back from Timbo, then that's when I'll start cutting the rings and show you guys how we do the ring cutting here.
So let's go get this cleaned up, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so now we're going to start hanging the rods. I'll show you guys my little cool tool I've learned over the years of the easy way how to do the hard stuff.
By hanging the rods too, you basically just mean assembling
Assemble them, yeah.
Okay.
I'll just put a little WD-40, that way the pin slides in good on there. You got to make sure to oil the rod. And I always start with the cutout to my left. I'm right-handed, so it makes it a lot easier for me. But if you look at the tool that I made, it's just a regular flathead screwdriver with a little V-cut in it.
So how does that help you?
And normally someone will have like a little punch, and they'll get the clip started in there like that, or wire lock, some people call them, and then you bend it in. And sometimes it'll bend the clip because some clips are a lot harder to get in than others. So with the cutout, all I do is I start it there, and you always want to leave a little bit over. That way, if you ever have to uninstall it, you don't have to get a punch and start moving the lock around. So then you just take the cutout on the screwdriver, push it in, and it just makes it a whole lot easier.
That is 100% not the way that I would.
Yeah, well, that's the one
it.
side, so you push it through.
Yeah.
The other side, now that
On
you
the
can't
other
push
side.
it through.
Yeah.
Usually I'll put it right where the cutout is, and this is the tricky part. You got it's like a mush. You gotta go put it in and then twist it over, just like that.
Holy crap!
That makes it a lot easier.
Just from a notch screwdriver, just a V notch.
Yeah,
Just a V notch and a screwdriver.
Get it at Harbor Freight for $1. And I always do that just to set the pin, make sure it's not gonna come out.
Okay, now we got all the rods hung. Brittany's in the bathroom, so I'm taking over for a second. So what are these rings that you're putting on? These aren't any...
This is an oil support rail, because with your stroke, they got to move the compression height of the piston up, so then that gets rid of the support right there for the oil ring. So what this does, the Manley pistons have a very small groove cut in the very bottom of there, and you just put it on like that, snap it right into the groove, and now that gives it the support here for the oil ring. So without
I
that,
see.
it'll bend the oil ring there, and you'll have major problems.
Yeah, okay, I see. So we'll throw all those on, and then what?
After that, then we'll start cutting the rings. I'm getting it set up.
Cutting rings? So the rings don't just go on?
Oh no, definitely not. It's another cool tool to have. A lot of different companies sell them. And what that does is just make sure you get it down, because they say to always check it about 1 inch from the top of the deck. So this makes it a lot easier than having to try to center the piston and getting it off center, and then when the motor gets put together and gets hot, the ring gap's too tight, so that just goes in there and slides.
Perfectly centers.
Yeah, makes it very, very easy. And it's adjustable all the way from, I think, a 2-inch bore to 4.600 bore, which is huge.
Because you were saying earlier, a lot of times people try to use the piston to
Like
actually
what they'll do
center
is
it.
they'll take the piston and they'll do that and try to just eyeball it, you know, off that part of the piston.
Which might get you close.
It'll get you close, but
very rarely
you know,
perfect.
And if you look, you can't tell that's not centered. Right now, if I were to check it, it's going to read bigger than I wanted. So I think the ring's cut properly. Put the motor together. It's centered in the piston. You know, it's not going to be off-centered when it's in the groove on the piston. So your gap will be a lot less than what you anticipated it to be. So that's why we like to use these here.
It's just a lot more accurate.
You can see how far off that is. Right, this side can go down that much more. And now it's dead center.
Yeah. All right, you guys, so once we get the rings cut, basically we get the pistons all ready to go into the block here. The next step is the thrust bearings.
Yeah.
Now, if you guys remember, on the last time we were here, we actually went over kind of a trick that they do with the thrust bearings. Well, now we can actually show you how they do it.
So what we'll do, it's opposite of the lock or the tang. You want to go here. I usually rest my finger there, that way I don't get the bearing. And just take it and want to file about a 45-degree chamfer in it. When the two parts line up like that and the cap's on there, what that's going to do is it's going to allow oil to come through this groove that we just opened up and spray oil on the crank, on the thrust of the crank, and help lubricate that bearing more. Because it's a really bad problem, especially with like the Ultra 4 and race stuff. It always knocks the thrust of the crank like we showed in the previous video. So that's what we do, and completely eliminates that completely. So just like the crank, and surprisingly it's all still perfectly in spec, like it was brand new from the factory.
But it's not.
No, no.
It's not brand new.
The clearance in the housing boards, you're going to have 2.5 thousandths, 2 5/10ths on the mains, and a 2 thousandths on the rods, which is perfect.
That's about the amount of space you have for oil to flow around it,
The
essentially.
distance between the bearing and the crankshaft, that way the oil is in there.
Give me something new. I want it back through and through. Just do it. I'll let you rule. I know you like to break the rules, and my cry is being too.
When you tighten the mains in, you always want to start in the center and work your way out. That you never want to just tighten them all down. That's my first time, huh?
I feel like you make that look super easy.
Got power over me. You lock me up. Don't wanna leave. Music, the little things without you.
Okay, so now we're going, like we talked about in the other video, going from the single bolt cam to the 3-bolt cam. And here you can see the difference, just let alone in the dowel pin. At certain angles you can see the amount of duration it has. If you come over on this side,
Let's see.
it's going to be hard to tell, but the duration is from here to here, how long the valve is staying open.
Okay.
And this one is a lot more. You could also tell the ramp rate You know, how fast it comes up and closes is a lot more aggressive on this one.
Yeah.
This is what opens the valve. So
Yep.
the new cam is going to open the valve sooner or quicker, and it's going to stay open longer. So it's
yeah.
going to allow more airflow and more fuel to get in there and
Good
escape.
explanation.
Boom. Let's slide her in the hole.
So this is the new set we talked about last time, the double roller set. And the one you guys had on there before was just a single. So like I said, you're adding a whole nother set of teeth, and the chain is twice as thick. There's the new chain. And then this one has a full Torrington bearing on the back. So what that does is this actually rides up against the cam plate here. And the factory sets, they just relied on very little bits of oil to get in between the metal gear and the metal plate. So this is a Torrington bearing. It's needle bearings in there. And this actually spins. That way you don't get nowhere here, a lot less friction, opens up a little bit of power, stuff like that. So it's a very, very good upgrade. We don't ever use the singles anymore, just because now you could get a double chain US. This is made in the USA. This is a really good set. You could get these cheaper than you could get the factory GM singles.
you might as well.
Yeah, and it's dumb to not do it.
Right. And then I had a question, which actually a lot of you guys had asked, why not go to a gear drive? Because then you don't have to worry about a chain or two chains. You can actually just go gear on gear, which you would think would be a less failure point, but the problem is shock load, right? The gears will not take that shock load.
If it's like a street car, you know, a Sunday grocery getter or whatever, that's fine because you're at a constant throttle position. But on these where you're on the gas, off the gas, on the gas, that shock load will actually break the crank right behind the #1 main. This cam, we retarded it 2 degrees because this cam has a 4-degree advance built into the cam, and that's a little bit much for what we like to do now. So what we did was retarded the crank 2 degrees, and then that way that'll leave the cam 2 degrees advanced instead of being 4 degrees advanced.
Nice. Yeah, I ain't going nowhere.
Because you know what they say about guys when they tie stuff down?
Yeah, you gotta shake it.
You shake it.
You gotta shake it. That ain't going
The
nowhere.
shake test?
If you don't tell it ain't going nowhere, then that's a problem. But that ain't going nowhere. Yes, I changed. I don't have long sleeve on anymore because what was like January 10th? It's like 70
so
freaking
hot.
degrees.
I'm sweating. Guys, anyways, final piece to the puzzle. Our engine is officially ready to go, which means that now we can get everything over to DCD Customs to get it all done. Ching-ching! There's a train coming. Gosh darn it. Y'all are gonna have to deal with the train because I'm not gonna wait for it to pass by.
There we go.
Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Remember, you can find all your Life Bright Nation merch at LiteBrightStudios.com.
I told him to.
All your Life Bright Nation decals at Pixel Decals. You're such a child. At PixelDecals.com. Guys, again, massive thank you to CBM Motorsports. Again, LS specialists of the freaking world. Bring your motor here if you ever need anything done to it because that's pretty freaking
We could
impressive.
go to LS Fest now.
that's a thought. Guys, we love you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Let's go put this
Wow,
together.
we should probably go to King of the Hammers before LS Fest.
Well,
We
yeah.
gotta make it through one before the other.
Boom. Rocking and a rolling, rocking and a.
And rolling.
It's not rocking and rolling, rocking and rolling.
What is it? What's the lyrics? I thought it was rocking and a rolling.
It's rocking and a rolling, rocking and a
Rolling.
reeling, Baba Ran.
Reeling?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? What does rocking and reeling mean?
Yeah, it is.
I thought I just repeated it twice. Oh, well, I feel like an idiot.
It's okay, snap my picture.
Shut up.
She's
jerk.
not smack my bitch up, was snap my picture. So we were in the car, like we were just dating, and it came on, and she's like blazing it. She's driving. She's like, "Snap my picture!" And I looked at her and said, "What the f did you just say?" And she goes, "Snap my picture," and I was like, "Oh no!"
That's what I thought the lyrics were.
Smack my.
Why would I assume that someone would have the lyrics "smack my bitch up"? Like, thanks for calling me out, jerk.